Christmas is supposed to be warm, joyful, safe. But what if that version of Christmas is incomplete, carefully edited, and intentionally sanitized? Because buried beneath the lights and carols is a figure so disturbing that history itself tried to erase him. Long before Santa Claus became the face of Christmas, before gifts and cheer, there existed another presence that ruled the winter season, a horned shadow that embodied fear, punishment, and consequence, and his name was Krampus. Today, he's treated like a horror mascot or a novelty costume, but centuries ago, Krampus was something far more serious. He was an authority, a symbol of moral enforcement, and a reminder that winter was not kind, not forgiving, and not sentimental. To understand why Krampus vanished from mainstream Christmas, we have to go back to pre-Christian Europe, to a time when winter wasn't festive, it was deadly. When darkness lasted longer than daylight, food was scarce, and survival depended on discipline, obedience, and fear. Ancient Alpine communities believed nature itself judged human behavior, and horned figures represented that judgment. Entities tied to the wild, to death, to seasonal balance, not evil in the modern sense, but necessary forces that kept society in order. Krampus emerged from this worldview as a winter enforcer, a being that appeared during the coldest, darkest nights to punish disorder and reward balance. And his appearance, goat legs, horns, and chains, was not meant to terrify for entertainment, but to reflect the brutal reality of winter itself. But when Christianity expanded across Europe, it faced a problem. People didn't abandon their old beliefs easily, and Krampus was deeply embedded in winter rituals. So instead of erasing him immediately, the church attempted something more strategic. They reframed him. Horned pagan symbols were rebranded as demonic, ancient enforcers were labeled evil spirits, and figures like Krampus were slowly detached from their original meaning and pushed into the shadows. This wasn't just theological, it was political. Christianity needed moral authority, and Krampus represented a rival system of judgment that didn't come from the church, but from nature and tradition. Over time, Christmas itself was transformed from a survival ritual into a holy celebration centered on purity, light, and divine mercy, and there was no place in that narrative for a creature who punished instead of forgave. Krampus didn't disappear overnight. He was ridiculed, demonized, and eventually marginalized, turned into a cautionary tale rather than a central figure. By the 17th and 18th centuries, the Catholic Church openly condemned Krampus imagery, banned festivals like Krampusnacht, and destroyed masks and effigies, claiming they promoted satanic influence. But what they were really doing was eliminating a competing moral symbol. Fear was being replaced with doctrine, consequence with confession, and Krampus represented a system they couldn't fully control. Yet the erasure was never complete. In rural regions of Austria and Germany, Krampus survived in secrecy, passed down through folklore, whispered traditions, and underground celebrations, because for many people, Krampus felt more honest than the sanitized version of Christmas. They understood that winter was harsh, that morality wasn't just reward, and that actions had consequences. This persistence is what makes Krampus unsettling even today, because despite centuries of suppression, he keeps returning. Modern Krampusnacht festivals are often dismissed as costumes and chaos, but their structure mirrors ancient rituals: masks, fire, noise, symbolic intimidation, elements that historically marked spiritual transitions. And here's the uncomfortable question historians rarely ask. If Krampus was truly meaningless, why did the church work so hard to eliminate him? Erased figures are rarely harmless ones. Krampus wasn't removed because he was silly or irrelevant, but because he challenged the narrative that Christmas wanted to become.
Santa Claus, as we know him, is a later invention, soft, forgiving, endlessly generous, perfect for a consumer-driven, comfort-focused society. But Krampus belonged to a time when morality was enforced, not negotiated, and that made him dangerous to systems built on obedience through hope rather than fear. Erasing Krampus allowed Christmas to evolve into a celebration of unconditional joy, but it also stripped it of its shadow, and cultures that lose their shadows tend to forget the cost of light. Today, Krampus survives as a joke, a horror icon, or a viral image, but his original purpose remains buried beneath centuries of rewriting. He was never meant to be loved, and that may be exactly why he mattered. Krampus was erased not because he was evil, but because he represented a truth Christmas no longer wanted to remember. That joy without consequence is fragile, that light exists because darkness enforces its value, and that some figures are removed from history not because they were wrong, but because they were too honest for the future being built. And if Krampus keeps returning every winter, perhaps it's because some stories refuse to stay erased. If you're drawn to the dark histories hidden behind familiar traditions, subscribe, because the stories we erase often reveal the most about who we are.